We're about to begin a brand new love journey. Please comment on where you're watching from so we can see that our Soul Stories family is all around the world. The wall clock struck midnight with a dry, sharp tick. In the wide glass-walled office overlooking the few cars still running along Manhattan Avenue, the city lights cast a cold sheen across Grant Mitchell's face, CEO of Mitchell Enterprises. The man Wall Street both feared and respected. He sat there flipping through pages of reports as if time itself didn't apply to him. Numbers, charts, and contracts were the only things that helped him forget the emptiness carved into his heart. But forgetting never meant the pain was gone. The black phone beside the files suddenly vibrated faintly, but urgently. His brows pulled together. Who would call him at this hour? An unfamiliar number flashed on the screen. On any other night, he would have ignored it. But tonight, something tugged inside him. A pull, a warning. He answered, "Grant Mitchell." His voice was deep, firm, and perfectly controlled. On the other end was a woman's voice, professional, slightly breathless. "Sir, this is Nurse Rodriguez from Manhattan General Hospital. I'm calling regarding patient Emma Caldwell. You're listed as her only emergency contact." Grant's hand tightened, veins rising beneath his fair skin. His heart skipped a beat. Emma Caldwell. That name had once been his light, the only woman who had ever touched the vulnerable parts hidden behind the iron walls he had built around himself. The one who vanished without a single goodbye, leaving him with questions that never found answers. How is she?" It was one of the rare times his voice wavered. "She was brought into the ER semi-conscious. We require a guardian to sign additional authorization," the nurse said quickly. "Please come immediately if you can." Grant didn't even manage a full reply. He tossed the pen aside and snatched his coat. The glass doors swung open and cold wind slammed against his chest. A brutal reminder. Don't be late. The elevator would take too long. He chose the stairs, his long strides flying down each step. Rain poured outside just as he sprinted into the lobby, as though the world itself was stunned by the call he just received. His driver approached, but Grant only ordered coldly, "Manhattan General," as fast as possible. The black car sped into the storm, thunder cracking the sky open. Grant sat rigidly in the back seat, fingers laced tight, knuckles pale. Fear lodged itself in his throat, a feeling he thought he had buried long ago. In his mind, soft brown hair and warm brown eyes emerged clearly. Emma, the woman he lost because of the most foolish misunderstanding of his life. He had tried to find her, and yet Emma vanished as if she had never existed. His life had been incomplete ever since, missing a piece he couldn't even name. If something happened to her now... The car screeched to a halt at the hospital entrance. Grant practically bolted inside. Nurse Rodriguez spotted him instantly. "Mr. Mitchell, please follow me." The hospital hallway stretched endlessly, the harsh white neon lights forcing his heart into a frantic rhythm. The smell of antiseptic made his head spin. He despised hospitals, but now he feared he was too late. At the ER entrance, a doctor walked out, removing his mask. "She's stable for the moment, but she's very weak, severely exhausted, suffering from prolonged lack of sleep and malnutrition." He handed Grant a folder. "You're the only person she listed as her emergency contact." Grant took it. Just 3 words struck like a blade twisting into his chest. Emergency contact. Grant Mitchell. "She doesn't have anyone else?" His voice sounded scraped raw, like metal ground down to nothing. The doctor shook his head. His tone lowered as he continued. "She collapsed right here in the hospital lobby. When she arrived, she was accompanied by a little girl around 4 years old. The child is safe and sleeping in the next room." Grant froze. "The girl is Emma's child? Where is she?" The doctor didn't answer immediately. He simply pointed toward a small observation window nearby. "You can see through that window." Grant turned his head. Just a few steps away, through the clear glass, was a small hospital bed. A tiny angel lay curled under a thin blanket, clutching an old teddy bear, long eyelashes fluttering with each soft breath. She looked exactly like him when he was a child. Exactly. Grant's world tilted, his whole body pulled forward by a force both burning and unbearable. He didn't even recognize his own voice when he spoke, only a trembling breath. "Emma, has my child?" The sight of the little girl sleeping behind the glass made Grant's mind reel. He almost forgot he was standing in the middle of a hospital. Every time he blinked, memories crashed into one another, tearing apart every layer of armor he had built over the past 4 years. Emma Caldwell. She had once been the only person he couldn't control. 4 years earlier, Emma had been just a new assistant at Mitchell Enterprises, but in less than a month, she became the most trusted person in the entire office. She remembered meeting schedules down to the exact minute, sorted documents at lightning speed, and handled public relations crises with just a few phone calls. But more than that, she was one of the few who knew how to talk to the lion in the cold CEO suit without making him roar. The first time Grant truly looked at her not as a subordinate was on a night he returned to the office after a heated meeting. Exhaustion made him want to throw everything to the floor. But when he opened the door, he found Emma asleep on her desk, her hand still resting on the report he needed for the next day. The soft yellow desk lamp tinted her cheeks with a gentle blush. A stray strand of hair crossed her forehead, creating a sweetness so effortlessly clumsy it caught him off guard. Grant stood there for a long time. So long he startled himself when he realized he was smiling. From that day on, sparks slipped between them in the smallest moments. His hand accidentally brushed hers while handing over documents. She flinched. He swallowed hard. Her gaze lingered on him in meetings. Long enough for him to notice, short enough for her to deny it. He often stepped out of the elevator slower, just to walk beside her a few more seconds. Two hearts recognized what was forming, but neither dared speak it. Grant was a powerful CEO, with an arranged engagement weighing on him like chains. Emma was his assistant, with no right to dream too far. And then that night arrived. The celebration party for a successful shareholders meeting, wine, blurred yellow lights, loud voices. Yet inside he felt nothing but a vast hollow. He stepped onto the balcony for air, and Emma was there, arms wrapped around herself against the cold breeze. She turned. Those brown eyes, shadowed with sadness, pierced straight into him. "You were leaving without telling me?" His voice was lower, rougher than usual. Emma gave a small, polite smile, the kind that hid disappointment. "You have plenty of people to see you off. I'm only an assistant." Grant stepped closer, his breath brushing his words. "You're not just an assistant." The space between them vanished. A touch of the hand became the explosion they had held back for too long. Lips met lips, trembling. They gave each other everything. Through longing, through trust, through a love neither dared to name. Emma slept in his arms, her head resting on his chest, where his heartbeat pounded out of control. For the first time in his life, Grant understood what it meant to want to wake up beside someone forever. But the next morning, his phone rang nonstop, his mother furious. "The family council has been waiting. Come immediately. And remember, the engagement must not be delayed." Grant left the bed in a storm of obligations and emotions. He told himself, once he canceled the engagement, he would come back and tell Emma everything. No more secrets. A few days later at the office, Emma returned to work as if everything had been a brief system glitch. She avoided his eyes, walked past him like a stranger. Grant's heart tightened with every step she took away from him. He wanted to tell her that the engagement was nothing more than a meaningless cage, but until he officially dissolved it, anything he said would be an empty promise. He wanted to wait, settle everything, then speak to her. He was ready to destroy it all, but before he could say a word, she was gone. On the third day, Emma's desk was empty. Laptop returned, ID badge neatly placed, a resignation letter with no reason, and not a single message left behind. She disappeared. "She's asleep. Stable for now," the doctor said, resting a hand on Grant's shoulder before leaving. The recovery room door closed, but Grant's heart swung wide open, letting every emotion rush in. He pulled up a chair and sat beside Emma. She lay there, her skin pale, lips dry, her breathing thin as a thread. Her once soft brown hair was now tangled, as if it had been fighting too long against life alone. The faint bruises on her arms made his chest tighten every time he looked at them. He lifted her hand and held it in his lap. Cold, not from temperature, but from the loneliness that had clung to her for the 4 years he'd been gone. You faced it all, alone, didn't you? He whispered, voice trembling, as if speaking any louder might make her disappear again. But Emma remained asleep. A faint sound came from outside. Grant turned. The door opened slightly. A tiny hand gripped the edge of it. Then a round little face peeked through, wide blue eyes filled with curiosity and fear. Lily. She clutched a teddy bear and stepped inside hesitantly. The white light reflected in those eyes, making them sparkle. Eyes that looked exactly like his. Grant shot to his feet, unsure what to do. A nurse followed behind, smiling gently. She woke up asking for her mom. I brought her here. Would you mind watching her for a bit, sir? I need to check on Emma's records. Grant nodded. He had never been this nervous, not even standing before hundreds of shareholders. Lily tiptoed to the bedside and touched Emma's hand lightly. Mommy? You're still sleeping? Her little voice was soft as a wildflower in the wind. Grant felt his heart twist. He knelt down so their eyes were level, keeping his tone warm. Your mom's just resting for a bit. She'll wake up soon. Lily looked at him, studying him as if he were a mystery to solve. Then she squinted, raised a small finger, and pointed at him. You're the man in the picture, right? Grant froze. What picture? Lily lifted her teddy bear, unzipped its belly, and pulled out a photo of him, dressed in a suit, the sharp-eyed CEO from that long-ago press conference. I've seen your picture a lot. Mommy keeps it in Bear's tummy. She looks at it and says your name in her head. The girl held the photo higher. And she cries a lot. Grant went still. His heart felt like it was plunged into cold water and then yanked back up in one breath. Lily tilted her head, her small voice honest enough to break him. You know my mommy, don't you? Did you make her sad? Grant inhaled deeply, though it felt like no air entered his lungs. I hurt your mom once, and I'm very sorry for that. Lily studied him for a few seconds, then spoke again, her voice light as a butterfly's wing. Then, please don't make her cry again, okay? Grant gently squeezed her tiny hand, swearing with all he had. I'll never make your mom cry again. The nurse returned. Her face showed a hint of unease, though her tone remained professional. There's something else I need to tell you, sir. Grant stood up instinctively, placing himself between Lily and the nurse like a protective father. The nurse glanced down at the file in her hand, then said carefully, Patient Emma listed you as her only emergency contact. In the worst-case scenario, if she doesn't make it, custody of Lily will be transferred to you. Grant froze. His heart ached so hard it almost screamed. Emma had prepared for the possibility of her own death, and the only person she trusted to protect her daughter was him. Not family, not friends, only him. Every ounce of Emma's love, pain, and responsibility for her child now rested on his shoulders. Grant turned to look at Emma lying motionless. The image of her holding their daughter in the cold night, running to the hospital because she couldn't take it anymore, cut through him like a blade. He stepped closer, his trembling hand brushing her hair. You thought you had to face everything alone? You thought I didn't want to be there, that I didn't want to know I had a child? Tears, his first in years, blurred his vision. Emma, I've been searching for you for 4 years. For 4 years, I had nothing but regret for the company. Lily tugged his sleeve, her tiny voice trembling. Mr. Grant, please don't cry. I'll hug you. Grant bent down and the little girl wrapped her arms around his neck, trusting him completely for the first time. Her small embrace shattered every wall inside him. He hugged Lily back, the first time he truly understood what being a father felt like. I'll protect you. I'll protect your mom. From now on, I promise. Outside, rain kept pattering softly against the tall glass windows. New York stayed loud and indifferent, unaware that in a small hospital room, a family had just begun to form, still covered in unhealed scars, but bound by something real. And Grant knew one thing for certain. He would never let Emma slip away from him and their daughter ever again. The steady beeping of the heart monitor echoed like the heartbeat of the stark white room. Grant hadn't moved from his chair in hours. Lily curled up in his lap, sleeping peacefully, her tiny hand clutching his jacket tightly as if afraid he might disappear. The light from the window washed over Emma's face, making her skin look even paler. Every passing second tightened the grip around Grant's heart. Then her long eyelashes fluttered. A sharp breath. Emma opened her eyes. Grant shot to his feet, his heart almost leaping out of his chest. "Emma!" His voice was hoarse, trembling with hope and fear. Emma blinked several times, trying to make sense of everything. But when her eyes landed on the man standing before her pupils contracted in terror. She tried to push herself up, but pain made her wrists tremble violently. "Why, are you here?" Her voice was raspy and weak, yet full of caution. Grant reached out to steady her, but Emma jerked away as if burned. "Don't!" Her breathing turned unsteady. "Don't show me pity." It's too late. Just one sentence, and Grant felt his heart tear open once more. He shook his head, stepping closer. "Emma, I'm not. You came because the doctors called, didn't you?" She let out a bitter laugh, her dry lips cracking and bleeding. "They called you because of that paper. Because I have no one else." Every word no one else said was a blade driven deep into him. "Emma, don't be kind to me, Grant." Her voice cracked. "Don't make me hope again." Grant swallowed hard, but he wasn't backing away. He pointed toward Lily, sleeping curled up beneath a blanket, breathing softly. "What about the girl? Is she mine?" Emma froze. Her eyelids twitched violently. Grant stepped closer, pain erupting in every word. "You didn't give me the right to be her father? Were you planning to hide her for the rest of my life?" Emma turned her face away as silent tears soaked the pillow. "What's the point of you knowing the truth?" She choked. "You have a wealthy fiancé, an arranged family engagement you can't refuse. You have an entire empire to protect. And I'm just a small secretary in some corner of your building." Grant felt like an invisible hand was strangling him. Emma looked at him, her eyes blazing with despair and hurt. "You know it. We never had a chance." Her voice shrank to a whisper. "We never had one from the beginning." Grant stepped back half a pace as if struck by a blow no one could see. "You think I saw you as a temporary distraction?" His voice dropped, trembling. Emma pressed her lips together, answering with silence sharper than any accusation. The space between them thickened, making every breath feel heavy. She inhaled shakily, mustering all her courage. "That morning, you left. Without a word. Without a look. You went to speak to your fiancé about your wedding." She laughed, but it was a laugh soaked in bitterness. "What was I in that story?" Grant remembered that morning. The urgency. The demanding calls. The fear of dragging Emma into the storm before he could shield her. His silence, that silence, had destroyed everything. Emma continued, every word pulled from an unhealed wound. "I'd rather my child grow up without a father than grow up seeing that father regret choosing me." Grant's hands clenched so tight his nails dug into his skin. He tried to speak, but the words jammed painfully in his throat. Emma wiped her tears and turned away. "Please don't pretend you care. I've learned how to live without you. A long time ago." In that moment, Grant was no longer a powerful CEO. He was just a man who failed to keep the woman he loved. He looked at Emma, truly saw every trace life had carved into her. Dark circles beneath her eyes from countless sleepless nights. Calloused hands from working to survive. A thinner body from sacrificing everything for her child. She had carried every burden in his place. And where had he been? Tricked by duty, silenced by fear, haunted by must and must not. All he could manage was one broken sentence. "I looked for you." Emma's eyes closed. "It's too late." Grant looked at Lily again. The little angel he didn't even know he had lost for years. A tear slid down his cheek. Quiet, but it was the silent collapse of a man who once believed he could control everything. Lily stirred, hugging her teddy tighter. Grant walked over and gently tucked the blanket around her. The soft smile on her lips made him want to hold the entire world just to protect her and Emma. He turned back. Emma's eyes were dry but hollow after crying. "Emma, I won't give up." She didn't reply. but her gaze said one thing only. She was scared. Scared of hoping again. Scared of breaking again. Grant understood, and that was what hurt most. When the nurse entered to check Emma's condition, Grant stepped into a corner of the room, but his eyes didn't leave Emma for even a second. He had lost for 4 long years. Now he had only one path left, to take back what he foolishly threw away, even if he had to face the entire world. And in that moment, Grant Mitchell made his choice. He would fight for Emma, for Lily, and for the family he never had the chance to protect. Emma stared at the white hospital ceiling, her breathing heavy, but the pain inside her chest had never been clearer. She closed her eyes and memories from 4 years ago surged back like a tide she could no longer hold back. Back when she worked at Mitchell Enterprises, Emma always came in earlier than everyone else, just to make Grant's Americano at the exact temperature he liked. She knew he'd never notice who placed the cup on his desk, but as long as his brow furrowed a little less when he took that first sip, her heart stayed warm the entire day. Emma loved him. It was the kind of quiet, patient love that already knew it would never be returned. The man she loved carried the weight of a powerful family empire on his shoulders. He already had a fiancée, someone who matched him in every social and genetic sense, and she was just a small secretary with a desk by the wall. She told herself to stay rational, but how could a heart obey when every time Grant looked at her with those deep, ocean-colored eyes, the whole world seemed to stop? And that night, she made the biggest mistake of her life. She let herself fall into his arms. The next morning, Emma woke up with a childish belief that maybe, just maybe, a miracle had happened just for her. But within minutes, that miracle turned to ash. Grant got up and left, wearing the face of a busy CEO, not a man who had just shared the sweetest night of her life. He walked away as if nothing had ever happened. Emma watched the door slam shut and heard something shatter quietly inside her. A tear slipped onto the pillow, but she wiped it away quickly, forcing herself to stay strong. If she stayed, she would only make things harder for both of them. She decided to quit that very week. She didn't dare look at him again, afraid she'd fall to her knees and beg for scraps of affection. So she left, silently, swiftly, leaving no trace behind. 2 months later, Emma discovered she was carrying the life born from that fateful night. She had been vomiting every morning, thinking it was just bad food. But when she saw the pregnancy test show 2 clear lines, it felt like the ground dropped beneath her. Shock, trembling, disbelief. And then came the fear. If Grant found out, what would he say? How would his family see her? Would her child be treated as a stain on their perfect lineage? She held her belly and made a choice. Mommy will protect you, even if it's just the 2 of us. She decided to leave New York, the city soaked in his memories. Emma moved to a small coastal town. Her rented room was old, its walls thin enough for the winter wind to sneak through. She worked 3 jobs a day, waitressing at a diner, stocking shelves at a supermarket, and cleaning classrooms at a preschool. Every time Lily kicked inside her, Emma would lay a hand on her belly and whisper, "No one will ever reject you, because I've been through that." Emma grew up in an orphanage, a child nobody wanted, nobody held, nobody remembered on her birthday. She swore her child would never live that same story, but on those long, aching nights of pregnancy, she would cry quietly into her blanket, whispering, "If only your father knew you existed." She told herself to stay strong, but her heart kept withering away. Meanwhile, back in New York, Grant had made the biggest decision of his life. He broke off his engagement. He rushed to Emma's apartment to tell her everything, that he wanted her, only her, but the room was empty. The landlord said she had moved out a month ago. Every trace of her was gone. His mother was furious. "You're destroying our family's reputation for a girl beneath your station?" The board of directors warned him, "She'll drag you down with one scandal." Grant ignored them all. He sent letters to her old address. They were returned unopened. He checked her employment file. She'd listed a temporary address. He hired a private investigator. Nothing. Emma had disappeared. It was as if she had never existed. Every morning, Grant woke up clinging to a fragile hope that she might come back. Every night, that hope died a little more. He used to think he controlled everything. But he realized he'd lost the most important thing in a single moment of silence. 2 cities, 2 lives, and 1 shared wound. Each believed the other had walked away. Emma thought Grant chose duty and family. Grant thought Emma had left because she never loved him. They lived apart, each carrying a broken heart, through endless nights no one else could understand. Neither knew that fate would draw them together again. On a rainy night, when Emma collapsed in a hospital lobby, and the only person left for her to lean on was the man who once shattered her heart, Emma opened her eyes in the hospital room, a single tear sliding down her temple. She turned her head to where Grant sat motionless beside her. Old wounds tore open before they could heal. A silent question hung between their damaged hearts. If one of us had been braver back then, would everything be different today? Soul Stories fam, if you're watching on another channel, come home to us at Soul Stories, where tens of thousands of listeners and sharers come together. Emma had been moved to a recovery room. Grant stood by the glass door, watching her sleep, her face still pale. Beside the bed, Lily, with her messy brown hair, was curled up in his arms like a small kitten, clinging to the only safe place it knew. He sat there, keeping time with the breaths of mother and child. He'd been gone for more than 4 years. Now he wouldn't allow himself to look away from them, even for a moment. When Emma woke up in the middle of the night, her eyes still flashing with fear each time she saw him, Grant knew he would have to start again from below zero. The next morning, the doctor suggested that Emma be discharged to recover at home. Grant immediately stood up. "I'll take them home." Emma started to protest, but exhaustion caught her voice in her throat. She turned her face away, trying to hide. Grant leaned closer. "I'm not doing this out of pity, Emma. I have a responsibility to my family." The word family made her freeze. But then she swallowed whatever emotion rose inside. "Lily needs to rest," she said quietly, climbing out of bed without meeting his eyes. Grant followed silently, his hand always ready to steady her if she faltered. The drive from the hospital to Emma's apartment took only 12 minutes. Yet to Grant, it felt like crossing a lifetime. Her apartment was in an old complex near the edge of the city. The stairwell was narrow, carrying the musty smell of buildings that had outlived their prime. Grant glanced at the peeling paint, the flickering lights, and his chest tightened. Emma unlocked the door. Inside, the small place was tidy but worn. The furniture was secondhand, the edges frayed. The window was sealed with duct tape to keep out the drafts. Lily ran to the corner, hugging her familiar teddy bear. Grant stepped in, his gaze landing on a tiny birthday cake on the small table. It had hardened and shrunk, with a half-burned candle shaped like the number 3. Next to it was a photo, Lily cutting the cake alone, in an empty room. No father, no one else. Just Emma setting the timer and running into the frame to hug her child. Grant placed his hand on the table, his fingernails digging into the wood. He turned away, but the tears came anyway. Had she really grown up like this? Emma saw his expression and hurried to explain, her voice trembling. "I had a night shift that day, but I still wanted her to have a birthday." Her voice cracked, and Grant felt as if someone had crushed his heart beneath their heel. He looked straight at her, each word glowing hot like iron. "I wasn't there. But from today on, I'll be there for every birthday." Emma said nothing, but her hand curled into her sleeve, hiding the tremor. That afternoon, Grant's phone rang. He stepped onto the balcony to answer. The glass door was closed, but Emma could still hear the sharp voices through the speaker. "Grant Mitchell, the press is reporting that you've been seen at the hospital with an unknown woman and a child." Another voice joined in, the chairman of the board. "We demand an explanation. The company cannot afford a scandal right now." Grant was silent for a few seconds, then answered, firm and final. "That woman and that child are my family." There was a stunned pause on the other end. "Grant, do you understand what you're risking?" The investment deal, the company's image, Mitchell's entire reputation. Grant narrowed his eyes, gazing through the glass at Emma and Lily sitting on the floor, piecing together a puzzle. Mitchell Enterprises can lose a CEO, but Emma and Lily can't lose me. And he hung up without hesitation. When he walked back in, Emma was staring at him, her eyes a storm of emotion and fear. "Why did you do that?" "You'll pay for it, because of me and Lily." Grant took a step closer. The distance between them was only a few feet, but it felt like their hearts were already side by side. I was too late once. I won't make that mistake again. Emma pressed her lips together, turning away to hide her reddened eyes. You don't have to do this for me. Grant shook his head softly. I'm doing this for us. The word us startled her, a beautiful word she had buried long ago. Grant bent down and lifted Lily into his arms. The little girl giggled, wrapping her arms around his neck as if she had known him all her life. Daddy Grant, can we have dinner? Emma froze. Who did you just call Daddy? Her voice quivered. Lily blinked innocently. Daddy Grant. Mommy looks at your picture and cries a lot, so I think you must be my daddy. Emma covered her mouth to hold back a sob. Grant held Lily tighter, feeling his soul return to him in that instant. He turned to Emma, his voice steady and low. Lily is my daughter, and you're my family. Outside the door, rain began to fall again, just like the night they lost each other 4 years ago. But this time, the doors of their hearts were no longer locked. The cracks of pain had begun to open, so that light could finally come through. And in that moment, Grant Mitchell made a silent vow. He would fight for them, even if the whole world turned against him. The small apartment felt strangely warm with the sound of a child's laughter. After the simplest yet happiest dinner of Grant's life, Emma, too tired, had gone to lie down in her room. Only Grant and Lily remained in the living room. The little girl hugged her teddy bear, tiny legs crossed on the sofa. Uncle Grant, I want milk. Grant blinked in surprise. Ah, right. Milk. Okay, what kind? Lily tilted her head, thinking. The kind Mommy buys. It has a bouncy cow on it. Grant froze. What on earth was a bouncy cow? But he went searching anyway, bending over the kitchen cabinet and opening every cupboard as if he were solving a national security code. Lily stood behind him, instructing like a mini-commander. Not that. That's for washing dishes. Hey, that's chili sauce. Uncle, you're kind of bad at this. Finally, Grant grabbed the right milk carton. He felt like he'd just closed a multi-billion-dollar deal. Lily put her hands on her hips. Now you have to warm it up. Not too hot. Grant nodded confidently. That's easy. 5 minutes later. It's too hot. My tongue is burning. Lily puffed her cheeks in protest. Grant panicked. I'm sorry. I just wanted it to warm up faster. The scene made Lily burst into giggles. Grant scratched his head in embarrassment. He had negotiated the biggest deals in America, yet he was losing to a 4-year-old at milk making. When it was bedtime, Lily toddled toward the bathroom with a tiny toothbrush in hand. Mommy always ties my hair before bed. Can you do it? Grant swallowed. Another challenge. He picked up a strand of Lily's soft hair, terrified like he was holding crystal. He twisted it and let go. The hair fell like a waterfall. Lily looked in the mirror, eyes wide. My hair looks like a bird's nest. Grant slumped down, defeated. I'm sorry, I'm so clumsy. Lily hugged him around the neck. It's okay. First time. She climbed onto the bed, pulled up her blanket, and kicked her feet excitedly. I want a story. Grant grabbed a fairy tale book. His reading tone was stiff at first, like a robot, but Lily's eyes still sparkled like stars. In the story, the prince saved the princess from an evil castle. Lily exclaimed, just like you. You saved Mommy too. Grant went silent, but his heart roared with an overwhelming emotion he'd never felt before. He asked quietly, why do you think I'm a superhero? Lily's expression turned serious, like she was revealing a cosmic truth. Because Mommy said, Uncle Grant is the strongest in the world. He'll always protect Mommy, even if you can't see him. But why were you gone so long? I waited and waited. Waited for you. Those words stabbed straight into Grant's chest. His voice caught in his throat. I'm sorry. Daddy came too late. Lily smiled and pressed her tiny hand to his cheek. It's okay. You're here now. Her voice was soft as a spring breeze, yet strong enough to melt every wall around Grant's heart. He held Lily tight. The scent of her hair, the tiny warmth in his arms, the little heartbeat against his chest, a sacred moment that hurt in the best way. Then Lily looked up, her blue eyes shimmering. "Can I call you Daddy? Everyone at school has a dad," Grant cried. No sobbing, no sound, just tears falling relentlessly. Hot, trembling, like a storm finally breaking free after years of being caged. He hugged the little girl tighter. "You can call me that as many times as you want, because it's the truth. Daddy loves you." Lily hugged him back. "I love you too, Daddy." Emma stood at the doorway, having seen everything. She had come to remind Lily to sleep, but the sight froze her in place. A man known to be cold and ruthless in the business world, now trembling like a child simply because his daughter hugged him. She saw the sincerity in every tear he had hidden for years. Emma turned away, covering her mouth, not to hold back pain anymore, but because a new emotion was blossoming inside her. Could Grant be the shoulder she had always lacked? Could Lily have finally found the missing half of her heart? When Lily had fallen asleep, Grant stood beside the bed, watching the little girl dream, his expression strangely gentle. Emma approached and softly said, "Thank you for being here." Grant turned, eyes still tinted red. "I will always be here, no matter how hard you push me away." Emma didn't reply, but she didn't turn away from his gaze, and that was signal enough for Grant to believe. She was beginning to open the door to her heart, the one whose key he once lost. Outside, a light breeze carried the remnants of childish laughter into the quiet night. A peaceful night, a family newly stitched together by real love. Grant brushed Lily's hair and smiled. "Tomorrow, Daddy will be better at tying hair." Emma let out a small laugh, a sound so beautiful it felt like magic. And in that moment, Grant knew he had found his life again, not in skyscrapers, but right here, beside the two people he loved most. Late at night, the golden hallway light slipped through the crack of the door, casting two shadows on the wall, one tall, one small. Grant stood there facing Emma. Only a few steps separated them, yet it felt like the years they had lost. The silence was so deep that they could hear the clock ticking. Emma leaned back against the wall, clutching the blanket tightly to steady herself. She knew this conversation was inevitable. Grant looked straight into her eyes. "I've been searching for you for 4 years. You vanished like you never existed." "Because," Emma hesitated, her breath catching, "because I thought you never chose me. You never would." She looked down at her trembling hands. "You had an arranged marriage, a whole family legacy on your shoulders. I was just the person who would drag you down. When I found out I was pregnant with Lily, I thought about it for weeks. But I didn't want her to grow up knowing she was a burden to your family, so I kept it a secret." "I'm sorry." Grant shook his head so hard that his hair fell out of place. "No, I never wanted that marriage. I called it off the moment I realized what I truly wanted." Emma's eyes widened. "You called it off?" Grant drew in a deep breath, his voice rising from somewhere deep within him. "I walked into that meeting and told them I wouldn't marry for business, that I'd found the person I wanted to protect. But when I came back, you were gone." Emma froze. It was as if someone had smashed through the wall she had spent 4 years building. She shook her head, tears filling her eyes. "I didn't know. I truly didn't know." Grant took a step closer. "Because you never gave me the chance, you disappeared, Emma." His throat tightened. "Every morning I asked myself, did you ever love me at all?" A tear slid down Emma's cheek and lingered on her lips. She pressed them together, her voice trembling. "It's because I loved you that I left." Grant went still, like someone had ripped all the air from his lungs. Emma clutched the blanket to her chest, her voice breaking as old pain came flooding back. "I was scared. Scared that one day I'd get sick or fade away, and that our child would end up an orphan like I was." Grant could only stand there, the ache in his heart too deep for words. Emma wiped her tears, but the more she wiped, the more they fell. "So, I wrote your name as my emergency contact." She pressed a hand to her chest where her frail heart still tried to beat. If I didn't make it, I wanted Lily to have a father. I wanted her to have you, even if I wasn't here anymore. Each word stabbed into Grant like a needle. He stepped forward, gentle but firm, lifting her chin until her eyes met his. Emma, if you fall, I'll fall with you. His breath trembled. Don't ever talk about disappearing again. I can't bear it. Emma blinked, her gaze reflecting a sea of regret, love, and pain woven together. Grant rested his forehead against hers, his voice no more than a whisper of wind. I lost you once. I wouldn't survive losing you again. Emma let out a soft, broken sound. She didn't resist anymore. Her shoulders shook as new tears fell. But this time, they weren't only from pain, they were from release. She sobbed quietly. I'm just scared. Scared that everything too beautiful always fades. Grant wrapped his arms around her, holding her as if he could mend every fracture in both their hearts. Then let me be the one to keep it from fading. Emma melted into him completely. The shoulders she once believed would never be hers were now the safest place she'd ever known. Grant stroked her hair, his voice a vow carved into the air itself. I love you, Emma. Every day you were gone, I still loved you. That confession came 4 years too late, but it was everything Emma had once prayed for. She looked up, her eyes still glistening. Grant leaned down. A kiss soft as dawn rain, trembling and tender. The kiss of two wounded hearts finding their way back. Not fiery, not desperate, just a promise. I'm here, and I'm not leaving again. They held each other for a long time. Two lost pieces finally fitting where they belonged. Outside the window, the rain had stopped. The clouds drifted apart, and the city lights shimmered like silent blessings. Emma closed her eyes and whispered into his chest, Do you think we're still in time? Grant tightened his grip, answering softly, I'll make sure we are. For you, for our daughter, for us. And in that moment, hope began to breathe again. Here is the precise American English translation. Accurate meaning, correct grammar, no added or omitted content. That morning, New York woke up to a silent explosion. On the front pages of the 3 biggest financial newspapers, one photo dominated everything. Grant Mitchell holding a little brown-haired girl, his cheek pressed to her forehead, his usually ice-cold eyes softened in a way the world had never seen. The headline, blazing red like a strike of lightning, Mitchell Group's CEO has a secret child. Who is the mother? Within an hour, the photo spread across social media. Paparazzi footage of Grant leaving the hospital the previous night was cut and looped, glitching like a track. Below it, endless comments, speculation, calculations, jealousy, and curiosity. At the Mitchell Group headquarters, the ticker board plunged relentlessly. Red numbers bled like fresh wounds. The stock dropped 7% at market open. 5 minutes later, another 3% vanished. The conference room on the 42nd floor lit up earlier than usual. Shareholders sat in perfect rows, faces as cold as ice water. The chairman tapped his pen and stared directly at Grant. We need a statement immediately. The company is on fire. Grant stood tall, gaze steady. I will take responsibility for the communications, but there will be no statement that disrespects my family. A sharp voice cut in from the end of the table. Family? The runaway assistant and whatever that child is? Grant looked straight at the screen displaying Lily's photo, his voice lowering. My daughter. The room froze. Someone nearly dropped a pen. Someone exhaled hard, like releasing smoke. The chairman spoke again, trying to stay composed. Grant, we need you to separate your personal life from the company, at least until the investment deal with Shenton Group is signed. Grant shook his head. I will not separate myself from my daughter, and certainly not from her mother. A wave of whispers buzzed like disturbed bees. Risk forecast slides flashed across the screen, arrows firing like darts into Grant's back. He heard everything, but only saw a small room, a dried birthday cake, a number 3 candle half burned, and a picture of Lily cutting her own cake. The meeting adjourned. No handshakes, of course. As Grant stepped into the hallway, he saw his mother waiting for him. She wore a charcoal gray suit, hair neatly pinned, pearl earrings shining like dots of frost. She said no greeting, just handed him a white envelope. These are the best boarding schools. If you want to fix your mistake, put the child there and end things with that woman immediately. Grant didn't take the envelope. You just called my daughter that child. Your child, her voice sliced through the air. A runaway assistant can't step into this family. Have you forgotten what we're protecting? Grant's eyes darkened. You still haven't asked me once whether your son is happy. The head of a family does not put happiness before duty. She emphasized every word. Don't let emotions rot a legacy built with blood. A legacy without a heart is just an empty shell. Grant's voice was slow, patience worn thin. I will not sacrifice Emmy and Lily for an image. Mrs. Mitchell stared at him for a long moment. In her eyes flickered something like regret or fear. You'll understand one day, Grant. She left. Her cold perfume lingered behind. Emma's apartment that afternoon was strangely quiet. Lily slept, hugging her teddy bear, mumbling nonsense like she was counting clouds. Emma stood at the sink, water clinking against bowls. Her phone buzzed nonstop on the table. Messages from old friends, old coworkers, questions without question marks. She opened one at random. A photo of Grant holding Lily, his tender expression one she had never seen in the office. Beneath it, vicious comments. Speculation about her, fabricated stories about her past. Emma set the phone down, gripping the counter. Her heart felt squeezed by an invisible fist. If this continued, Grant would lose so much. Investment agreements, reputation, and the career he had spent his youth building. She walked to the bedroom, gazing at her daughter sleeping peacefully, a brown lock of hair across her cheek. Emma gently brushed it away, lips trembling. She knew what she had to do, even if her heart protested, even if her body felt like it was hollowing out piece by piece. Emma wrote a small note, handwriting slightly shaky. She stuck it on the cabinet near the door. She packed a small suitcase, choosing only the simplest items. A photo of Lily holding balloons, a headband with bunny ears, and her favorite socks. She looked around the room that had been their bunker, mother and daughter against the world, then pressed her hand to her chest. I'm sorry, Lily. Mommy will take you somewhere peaceful. Somewhere Daddy won't be hurt because of us. She pulled the suitcase to the door, planning to drop Lily off with her preschool teacher for a few days while she met Grant. She would thank him, apologize for intruding on his life, and wish him peace. She would return to him the right to not be the target of the world's arrows. Her hand closed around the doorknob. The door wouldn't open, not because it was locked, because a hand was pressed to the inside, holding it firmly, quietly but immovably. Emma looked up. Grant stood there in the doorway, eyes dark, shirt simple. No tie, exhaustion weighing down his shoulders. Yet something solid and steely shone in his gaze. I knocked 3 times, but you didn't answer, he said softly. I was afraid you'd disappear again. Emma retreated a step. You shouldn't be here. You have to protect the company, your image, everything that's yours. The company can find another CEO. He placed his keys on the counter, voice steady. There's only one Emma. A stone lodged in her throat. I don't want to ruin your career. You don't have that kind of power. His lips tilted, not arrogant, only gentle. You're the only one who can fix me. His phone rang nonstop. He turned it off. Outside the window, car horns crashed like waves against a shore. But inside this tiny apartment, time slowed. I'm leaving, Emma spoke quickly, afraid her heart would take over if she didn't. I'll take Lily somewhere no one knows us. You'll be safe. Safe without you, and my child is just a desert. Grant stepped closer. You taught me something 4 years ago. Silence kills love. I won't be silent again. Grant, please. Emma shook her head, tears spilling. Don't make this harder. He reached out, covering her trembling hand on the doorknob. His voice was deep, each word falling like rivets sealing a bridge shut. I lost you once. Never again. They stood face to face, only a breath apart. Behind them, a small room holding 4 years of loneliness. Ahead, a storm waiting to strike. But his hand stayed on hers, a vow without paper or ink. In the corner, Lily turned in her sleep, whispered into her teddy. Daddy. Grant heard it. His eyes softened. You can push me away, Emma, but I'll stand outside that door until your heart opens again. Emma closed her eyes. Tears fell onto his hand, warm and salty. The door stayed closed, but something inside her unlocked, fragile and small, like the first hint of light after a very long night. Outside, the media storm still raged. Inside, one man stood as a shield, and one woman realized she didn't have to run anymore. The private elevator opened onto the top floor. Floor-to-ceiling windows welcomed the entire New York sky inside, the clouds drifting lazily as if hung above the bookshelf. Grant's penthouse wasn't ostentatious, only tidy, serene, bathed in warm wood tones and a faint scent of cinnamon. Lily stepped out first, her tiny shoes clicking against the floor. She looked up at the ceiling lights, her breath catching as though she'd just chased a star. "Oh, my castle," Grant chuckled. "Our castle." Emma followed behind, gripping her bag strap tightly. For the first time in years, she found herself standing in a place untouched by hardship. The perfection of it made her throat tighten. Deep down, a quiet voice whispered, "Places like this aren't for you." Grant seemed to read her thoughts. He opened the closet, arranging 3 hangers neatly. "You can hang your things here. The left side's yours, the middle's Lily's. The small bedroom faces east. It gets sunlight on the bed every morning. If you don't like the furniture, I'll change it." Emma nodded faintly. "We'll try not to get in your way." Grant turned. "You're not guests. This is your home." The words warmed her like a cup of cocoa from a fairy tale. The next morning, the smell of butter filled the air. Grant clumsily flipped pancakes, their edges ragged, but Lily jumped in delight as if she'd discovered a secret of the universe. "Daddy flips like a superhero." "Superheroes don't burn breakfast," Emma teased, though her smile betrayed her amusement. "Daddy's learning," Grant said, a dot of flour on his forehead. Lily giggled uncontrollably, then took her roll seriously, fork in hand, tasting the first piece. She chewed slowly, blue eyes swirling in mock analysis, then nodded like a tiny food critic. "Tastes like clouds." "Thank you, expert," Grant bowed. "Tomorrow I'll make them heart-shaped." "Do hearts have corners?" Lily frowned. "Maybe," Emma quipped, "if it's a CEO's heart." Grant met her gaze, his laughter softening. Even a CEO's heart can be gentle. They ate breakfast around the kitchen island, sunlight spilling across the marble like honey. No phones buzzing, no storms of emails, only the quiet sound of cutlery and the short, tender words of a family learning how to exist together. That afternoon, Grant took them shopping for a few essentials. Lily chose bedding with galaxies and stars, while Emma picked a small lavender plant for the kitchen window. On the way home, Grant drove slowly, listening to Lily's stories from school, every one of them starting with "once upon a time," as if yesterday itself were a fairy tale. "Once upon a time, my teacher said the sun couldn't be purple, but I said I have my own sun." Grant smiled in the mirror. "So do I." "What's your son called?" Lily asked. "Lily and Emma." Emma turned to the window, biting her lip to keep her smile from breaking too wide. That evening, the big sofa became a fortress. They built a tent from thin blankets, and Grant strung a strand of fairy lights, tiny stars scattered across the ceiling. Lily's eyes widened as though she'd just been handed the keys to the real sky. "Tell me a story, Daddy." Grant deepened his voice and began a story about a knight who once lost his way, dropped his map, and finally found home by following the laughter of a tiny princess. Lily laughed so hard the blanket shook, clutching his collar with her small hands. Emma leaned against the couch, watching them, 2 hearts touching through small gestures that meant everything. The peace felt so fragile, she feared she'd wake from it. She'd once believed her life would always be rented rooms, half-burned birthday candles, and sleepless nights. Yet now even crooked pancakes felt perfect, because the man who flipped them did so with hands trembling from happiness. When Lily dozed off, Grant carried her to the small bedroom, pulled the blanket to her chin, and dimmed the lights. He stood there for a long time, as if engraving the image in his soul. When he came out, Emma was on the balcony. The city glowed beneath them like a river of light. The air was cool, faintly scented with night and distant traffic. "You okay?" he asked. "I'm fine." She paused. "Just scared." Grant stood beside her, not touching yet close enough to share warmth. Scared of what? Scared that one morning I'll wake up and all of this will be gone. I'll be here to prove it's real. Emma's voice dropped to a whisper. And if one day you change your mind? The question hung fragile in the air, like thin glass. Grant turned toward her. In the soft light, he saw faint marks on her wrists, old traces of exhaustion and illness. He remembered the small apartment, the dry cake, the photo of a child cutting it alone. Her fear wasn't distrust. It was the legacy of survival. He took her hand. Come with me. He led her to the bedroom. No rush, no heat, just a man removing his jacket, setting aside the heavy watch of corporate life, leaving only what was simple and true. I want to say something in a way you'll never forget. Emma stood still, her heart beating like a tiny drum. The bedside light softened. Grant knelt on one knee, not to propose, but to meet her at eye level, where her scars began. He placed his hand at her waist, lifted the hem of her sweater gently, asking for permission with his eyes, then pressed a kiss to the thin scar along her abdomen. The kiss was brief, not desire, but a ritual, a wordless apology to every inch of skin that had endured childbirth alone, a prayer of gratitude. His voice was low, trembling with sincerity. Thank you for bringing our daughter into this world. Thank you for surviving. Emma trembled, her hands resting on his shoulders for balance. Tears fell, but they didn't hurt. It felt as if she had finally set down an old suitcase she'd dragged for 4 years. Every sleepless night, every panic, every lonely escape was soothed by that single kiss. Grant looked up, eyes warm as the end of winter. You asked what I'd do if I ever changed my mind. This is my answer. He kissed the scar again, slower, reverent. This will always be my answer. The room seemed to breathe deeper. The noise of the city faded until only the rhythm of two hearts remained. Emma sat beside him, wrapped her arms around his neck, and touched her forehead to his. In that embrace, the old fear shattered and blew away like dust. I can't promise I'll stop being afraid right away, she whispered, but I'll learn to trust. I'll be here to teach you, Grant smiled, brushing his hand through her hair. One pancake morning, one bedtime story at a time. Every time you doubt, I'll repeat the answer. What answer? She asked softly. Grant pressed his lips to her forehead. Forever. Outside, the wind moved the curtain edge, tilting the glow of the streetlight. From the next room came a small sound, Lily turning in her sleep. They both turned toward it, then smiled, because they realized their smiles matched. That night, they lay down not in passion, but in rare peace. Emma rested her head on his arm, listening to the steady warmth of his heartbeat. The remnants of fear melted away like a shard of ice in hot tea. Before sleep took her, she whispered, "Thank you for the home." Grant pulled the blanket higher over her shoulder. A house isn't walls and ceilings. It's you and her. In the quiet dark, Emma smiled. For the first time, she believed she could say us without fearing it would break. And somewhere beyond the window, the New York sky seemed to nod in return. A warm home for three, one pancake morning, one bedtime story, one scar kissed in gratitude, and one promise carved into the night. Forever will always be my answer. Here is the precise American English translation. Accurate meaning, correct grammar, no added or omitted content. That morning, New York woke up to a silent explosion. On the front pages of the 3 biggest financial newspapers, one photo dominated everything. Grant Mitchell holding a little brown-haired girl, his cheek pressed to her forehead, his usually ice-cold eyes softened in a way the world had never seen. The headline, blazing red like a strike of lightning, Mitchell Group CEO has a secret child. Who is the mother? Within an hour, the photo spread across social media. Paparazzi footage of Grant leaving the hospital the previous night was cut and looped, glitching like a track. Below it, endless comments, speculation, calculations, jealousy, and curiosity. At the Mitchell Group headquarters, the ticker board plunged relentlessly. Red numbers bled like fresh wounds. The stock dropped 7% at market open. 5 minutes later, another 3% vanished. The conference room on the 42nd floor lit up earlier than usual. Shareholders sat in perfect rows, faces as cold as ice water. The chairman tapped his pen and stared directly at Grant. "We need a statement immediately. The company is on fire." Grant stood tall, gaze steady. "I will take responsibility for the communications, but there will be no statement that disrespects my family." A sharp voice cut in from the end of the table. "Family? The runaway assistant and whatever that child is?" Grant looked straight at the screen displaying Lily's photo, his voice lowering. "My daughter." The room froze. Someone nearly dropped a pen. Someone exhaled hard, like releasing smoke. The chairman spoke again, trying to stay composed. "Grant, we need you to separate your personal life from the company, at least until the investment deal with Shenton Group is signed." Grant shook his head. "I will not separate myself from my daughter, and certainly not from her mother." A wave of whispers buzzed like disturbed bees. Risk forecast slides flashed across the screen, arrows firing like darts into Grant's back. He heard everything, but only saw a small room, a dried birthday cake, a number 3 candle half burned, and a picture of Lily cutting her own cake. The meeting adjourned. No handshakes, of course. As Grant stepped into the hallway, he saw his mother waiting for him. She wore a charcoal gray suit, hair neatly pinned, pearl earrings shining like dots of frost. She said no greeting, just handed him a white envelope. "These are the best boarding schools. If you want to fix your mistake, put the child there, and end things with that woman immediately." Grant didn't take the envelope. "You just called my daughter that child." "Your child?" Her voice sliced through the air. "A runaway assistant can't step into this family." "Have you forgotten what we're protecting?" Grant's eyes darkened. "You still haven't asked me once whether your son is happy." "The head of a family does not put happiness before duty." She emphasized every word. "Don't let emotions rot a legacy built with blood. A legacy without a heart is just an empty shell." Grant's voice was slow, patience worn thin. "I will not sacrifice Emma and Lily for an image." Mrs. Mitchell stared at him for a long moment. In her eyes flickered something like regret or fear. "You'll understand one day, Grant." She left. Her cold perfume lingered behind. Emma's apartment that afternoon was strangely quiet. Lily slept, hugging her teddy bear, mumbling nonsense like she was counting clouds. Emma stood at the sink, water clinking against bowls. Her phone buzzed nonstop on the table. Messages from old friends, old coworkers, questions without question marks. She opened one at random, a photo of Grant holding Lily, his tender expression one she had never seen in the office. Beneath it, vicious comments, speculation about her, fabricated stories about her past. Emma set the phone down, gripping the counter. Her heart felt squeezed by an invisible fist. If this continued, Grant would lose so much: investment agreements, reputation, and the career he had spent his youth building. She walked to the bedroom, gazing at her daughter sleeping peacefully, a brown lock of hair across her cheek. Emma gently brushed it away, lips trembling. She knew what she had to do, even if her heart protested, even if her body felt like it was hollowing out piece by piece. Emma wrote a small note, handwriting slightly shaky. She stuck it on the cabinet near the door. She packed a small suitcase, choosing only the simplest items: a photo of Lily holding balloons, a headband with bunny ears, and her favorite socks. She looked around the room that had been their bunker, mother and daughter against the world, then pressed her hand to her chest. "I'm sorry, Lily. Mommy will take you somewhere peaceful. Somewhere. Daddy won't be hurt because of us." She pulled the suitcase to the door, planning to drop Lily off with her preschool teacher for a few days while she met Grant. She would thank him, apologize for intruding on his life, and wish him peace. She would return to him the right to not be the target of the world's arrows. Her hand closed around the doorknob. The door wouldn't open. Not because it was locked, because a hand was pressed to the inside, holding it firmly, quietly but immovably. Emma looked up. Grant stood there in the doorway, eyes dark, shirt simple, no tie, exhaustion weighing down his shoulders. Yet something solid and steely shone in his gaze. "I knocked 3 times, but you didn't answer," he said softly. "I was afraid you'd disappear again." Emma retreated a step. "You shouldn't be here. You have to protect the company, your image, Everything that's yours. The company can find another CEO. He placed his keys on the counter, voice steady. There's only one Emma. A stone lodged in her throat. I don't want to ruin your career. You don't have that kind of power. His lips tilted. Not arrogant, only gentle. You're the only one who can fix me. His phone rang nonstop. He turned it off. Outside the window, car horns crashed like waves against a shore. But inside this tiny apartment, time slowed. I'm leaving, Emma spoke quickly, afraid her heart would take over if she didn't. I'll take Lily somewhere. No one knows us. You'll be safe. Safe without you, and my child is just a desert. Grant stepped closer. You taught me something 4 years ago. Silence kills love. I won't be silent again. Grant, please. Emma shook her head, tears spilling. Don't make this harder. He reached out, covering her trembling hand on the doorknob. His voice was deep, each word falling like rivets, sealing a bridge shut. I lost you once. Never again. They stood face to face, only a breath apart. Behind them, a small room holding 4 years of loneliness. Ahead, a storm waiting to strike, but his hand stayed on hers, a vow without paper or ink. In the corner, Lily turned in her sleep, whispered into her teddy. Daddy. Grant heard it. His eyes softened. You can push me away, Emma, but I'll stand outside that door until your heart opens again. Emma closed her eyes. Tears fell onto his hand, warm and salty. The door stayed closed, but something inside her unlocked, fragile and small, like the first hint of light after a very long night. Outside, the media storm still raged. Inside, one man stood as a shield, and one woman realized she didn't have to run anymore.